Greetings. So this is going to be a fairly quick tutorial for a friend of mine in a photography group that was having some trouble with a picture, and she wanted to know how to achieve a certain look, and so I'm going to do a couple of things to a picture to kind of give an idea of where to go with that. This is a photographer named Lisa Holloway, who has the look that she's basically looking for to imitate, to get her images to look like. It's very glowy, very fantasy looking imagery, and some of it's just the photography itself. It's the lenses, it's the camera, but you can achieve this look in a couple of fairly simple ways. So this is the image that she sent to me to take a look at, and she was afraid that it wasn't worth saving. I actually really like the photo as it is, but I can understand why she wants to change it. I would want to do a couple of things to it as well. So to achieve the look, we're going to go through a couple of different steps. First of all, you want to go up to your layer button and duplicate the layer so that you have two of the same image. You won't be able to tell any difference right yet, except for, you know, the side over here where you can see the images. So then you want to go to your layer type and select multiply, and it's gonna darken up the image quite a bit, bring out a lot of those blown out areas are going to be darkened and have a lot more detail. You can tell, as you know, even his shirt and the detail in his hair. You can see a few more things now that it's not quite as bright as it was just from the exposure. But from that, we're going to select a sort of a Halloween orange. Maybe go a little bit more yellow. Sort of, yeah, something right around in there. And then with a soft brush, I had around size, let's say 430, and the linear dodge, and the opacity, I'm gonna go for around 30%. And it is a soft brush. It's a large, but it's the softest brush that you can get. The hardness is down to 0%. So then I'm going to go back over the image. I'm actually going to make the brush bigger. I'm going to go for 569 is what it has in there. So over the multiply layer, then I'm just going to drag and paint, basically, back and forth. I'm just kind of painting that orange into the image itself. And it's at 30%, so it won't be a super striking difference. But I'm just going to make sure that all of my edges are all of the color is touched up around the edges here. And then it's up to individual taste whether or not you'd want to go and do a second time over at 30%. It would definitely make it a lot brighter, and the yellow is a lot more look a little bit more bleached. I personally don't like that. I think that's a little bit too much. Whereas if you can see right there, just the simple duplicating and the painting has changed an image from, you know, blues and grays and kind of washed out and a little bit blown out to being greens and oranges and a lot softer. So that's one of the things that I would do to change the picture, and obviously you can go back in then if you want to over the original layer as well, and you could do linear dodge on that. You'd want to do it a lot less opacity just because that will affect the layer in dramatic ways. Maybe if you went back at, like, say 10% and just carefully touched up around the little kid and the balloon, but not on them. Just touch up the leaves and the ground and try and go as sparingly as possible. A little goes a long way in this kind of an image. So you can't even tell on the original now that there's something done, except it looks a little bit brighter, but underneath that multiply layer it shows up a lot more. So that's one of the ways that I would do the look that you're that she's looking for. If this is what you're trying to achieve with the image, make it sort of softer and glowy. And that's really simple step. Obviously you can do a lot more things. You can go in and sharpen and blur One of the things I would do with the original image, and I'm assuming, well, just for the sake of time, I'm going to merge these layers into one image, and then with my lasso tool set at about a feather of 40%, what I'm going to do is drag along the blurry background and then along the boy and along the balloon, and then I'm going to go back up to close the gap. So I'm basically selecting the tree background. This is basically what I'm doing, without getting anything in the foreground and without getting some of the leaves that are also not too far from the boy. So then I would go and select blur, Gaussian blur, and you don't want to go too crazy with it. I would say 4, maybe 5 is the highest you'd want to go, otherwise it might look unnatural. And with the feather of 40 pixels, you're not going to get a really fine line of where you can see it super blurred and where it's not blurred. Alright, so one of the other ways that I would edit this picture in a different variety, just to show there are many different ways to do one thing, to edit one picture. So this is the same image again. What I'm going to do is go up and create a new layer. I'm not going to duplicate this layer, I'm just going to create a new one, a blank layer. And using my brush tool and multiply setting at, looks like about 30%. 32%. I'm going to go select a sort of a mustard yellow, and with the layer set to overlay at 100%, I'm going to go in with the brush and again just paint over this layer, going a little bit sparingly around the boy and the balloon as well, so they remain close to the same color and the same brightness. Don't want to blow them out too much. And you can get really fine with the details if you wanted to. So this does look very sort of pea green, a little bit too yellow for my taste, but you can adjust different things. This is multiply, which makes it look a little bit more vintage. Looks like the overlay is probably one of the best options if you were going to go for this. It's just a little bit too yellow for me. You can go and also paint in with some oranges as well to give some warmer spots among the trees and the branches. And obviously this is very quick. This is not a finished picture by any means, but it's all up to individual. So another thing that I would do for either picture, depending on which one, or however many different ways you want to do this, one other thing I would do is to zoom in on the boy and select a brush tool with color burn at about 12%. Doesn't need to be that large of a brush. You just want to have the color be black, and pretty soft brush, doesn't have to be very large, just enough to edit him carefully. But then I would go over and just darken some of the areas around his shirt and his hair and his the jeans that he has on, just to help him be a little bit crisper, help those darks stand out. They contrast better with the background and with the light. And again, this is one of those tools that you want to be very careful on how much you use it, because you can easily burn a really dark line where there's no detail there at all. And it does sometimes, depending on what your picture, what the original picture's ISO is at, it will create noise, so you want to use it sparingly. But just going in and touching him up a little bit, in my opinion, makes him pop a little bit more from the background, and it helps him stand out as far as contrasting with the rest of it. So this is just a couple of ways to do it, but experiment and play with the different ideas, and certainly go in and touch up all kinds of little details. You can go in and color, highlight individual leaves with a certain color and a fine brush. There's just, there's a million ways to do stuff. So experiment and have fun.